Hello and welcome back to another future Doc House production. We are continuing our journey on hypersensitivity. Here we go. Type 3. We're on type 3 now. This is an immune complex hypersensitivity, okay? And it's usually due to antigen-antibody complexes. Still antigen and antibodies. I know, it's so confusing. And it's usually, this might help, it's usually systemic, okay? How do I explain this? Well, let's talk about how this happens, how these antigen-antibody complexes form. You have a foreign or self-antigen triggers the immune system, okay? It triggers an immune response. The antibodies are produced and they form this antigen-antibody complexes, which is what antibodies do. But here's the problem. These complexes are not cleared or removed. So after they form, they need to be removed. They need to be cleared out in the blood. And if this doesn't happen, these complexes can cause problems. You'll see. And it can cause inflammatory response. It can lead to an inflammatory response because these complexes are not supposed to be in the body anymore. They're supposed to be removed, gone, you know, just cleared out. And this leads to a response, inflammatory response, and increase in leukocytes to the complex locations. Why do I say complex locations? Because these complex locations decide to deposit themselves usually in the blood vessels, hence the systemic, or they can deposit in joints, causing arthritis, or the glomeruli of the kidneys, causing kidney disease. All right, here we go. It's very simple. Like if we just talk about the diseases, you get an idea of what these antigen-antibody complexes do. Lupus, systemic lupus erythematosus. This it's a big disease. We can spend a whole video on this. So simply, it's an autoimmune disease, and the antigens would be the DS, DNA, and SM antigen that would create these antigen-antibody complexes that will lead to this lupus, in a sense, this autoimmune disease. All right, there's also streptococcal glomerulonephritis. And I mentioned this because in type 2 hypersensitivity, we have the rheumatic disease caused by the antigens in the cell wall, okay? And these antibodies in rheumatic fever not only attack the antigens of the streptococcus cell wall, but the myocardial tissues, which is type 2 hypersensitivity. Now, again, streptococcus cell wall causes problems too in type 3, and it causes the kidney problems, the glomerulonephritis. And these antigens of the cell wall trigger this complex, which deposit themselves in the kidneys, and it's a type 3 hypersensitivity, and you've got this this disease here. So don't get the two confused, okay? So post-streptococcus glomerulonephritis can cause both type 2 and type 3 hypersensitivity. Do not get those confused. Arthus reaction, which is injected proteins, which create the antigen-antibody complexes. It's very interesting. There's a whole chapter on this. Read it, understand it, so that when you get a question on the boards about this, you'll be like, oh, I got this. Same thing with serum sickness. Usually this happens when horse serum is injected into the patient, usually due to the antivenom that's available, or the horse serum can be part of a vaccine or antivenom, and as well as injected proteins. So serum sickness, look it up. It's quite interesting and fascinating. Polyarthritis nodosa, which is caused by the Hep B surface antigens. Check it out. It's as I mentioned before, joints arthritis, and this is reactive arthritis. These are bacteria antigens forming antigen-antibody complexes. Farmer's lungs, inhaled antigens, mold, dust, spores. antigen-antibody complexes. And of course, these three: subacute bacterial endocarditis, symptoms of malaria, and Henoch-Schönlein purpura. This is a big one. Just read about it, look it up. I didn't want to get into the details of each single disease because it would just take forever. I wanted you to look them up because you're going to have to anyways, especially in pathophysiology. When I do decide to teach courses on pathophysiology, we're going to get into these in detail. But that book is, any of those pathophysiology books are 1,000 pages, so that's going to be quite a challenge. All right. On the boards, they're going to ask you about antigen-antibody complexes. They may not ask you to memorize that it's a type 3 because that might be just too simple. But they need you to know about the antigen-antibody complexes, that it's systemic usually, and that it can cause these things. It can deposit in the blood vessels, joints, and the glomeruli, the kidneys. Know that. I don't know what else they can ask here. And know the diseases. Know the diseases that the type 2 hypersensitivities are associated with, especially if I were to say something, especially post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. I've seen that on the board exams. I've seen serum sickness on the board exams, and I've seen lupus. Well, there's a lot of questions on lupus on the board exam, so no lupus. No polyarthritis nodosa, may not be for type 2 hypersensitivity, but they are on the boards. And definitely Henoch-Schönlein purpura are definitely on the boards. We will talk about malaria because I am teaching a microbiology series. So we'll be talking about malaria and subacute bacterial endocarditis, and of course streptococcus. All right, so that's type 2 hypersensitivity. If you like this video and you want more of these videos, please click subscribe. Thank you and have a nice day.
Congratulations! You are a medical student. One day, you will be a qualified doctor and your home will be a hospital or a clinic. But for now, your journey begins in the lecture hall. You will listen to countless hours of lectures and spend evening after evening in the library reading page after page of medical theory. And guess what? This is the easy part. The hardest part is retaining your medical knowledge, so it's there when you need it. For example, examinations. But don't worry, we are here to help. Meet Jeff. Jeff is a good student. He goes to all his lectures. He says no to parties so he can stay late in the library. But when it's time to take the exams, Jeff freezes. The knowledge that he spent so long learning just isn't there anymore. Now meet Jennifer. Like Jeff, she is a good student. But instead of just reading textbooks late into the night, Jennifer uses technology to help her study. She also watches lectures on YouTube and practices her knowledge with QUPI, a medical quiz app and online platform. Jennifer likes QUPI because it has 10,000 practice questions covering her entire medical course. This means she can practice her medical knowledge from anywhere and in a way that actually prepares her for the exams. Because she is practicing with exam-style questions, when she takes real exams, she'll be ready. Don't be a Jeff. Begin your 7-day free trial with QUPI today.